and we should all support them. But when you listen to Mosley, or you read Mosley or Travis Chase, you would think that the government is intolerant to all of these people. What I made clear is that there are few people, very, very few, and they're known to everyone, who are spreading racism, promoting division in our society, and even using the media, social media, or their platforms to extort people. And the extortion part is a key part. I notice in all the portrayals of Burke, and whether the issue he was properly, the documents were properly filed or served, that there seemed to be a campaign to avoid commenting about his extortion. Now, Rickford Burke, there is a trial that will take place at a particular time in March next year at a court on East Coast, which involves several people trying to extort money from a businessman. So Rickford Burke and the others, they post something on their media site. Then the modus operandi is to call the people and say, I can expose you more. They would post, I have some information on you. And then they'd call them privately or get another group of people to call these businessmen and say, if you don't want me to publish all that I know of you, you have to pay money. That's extortion. It's a crime punishable by law in any part of the world. It's a criminal act. This is not free speech. It's not a social media influencer anymore. This is a criminal acting in a criminal capacity. So I've seen the media space given to a criminal to defend himself on extortion in many of the papers. The Mirror Waves has about 30 editorials. I'm exaggerating a bit, but about 30 different views as to whether it is criminal for extortion. Maybe every criminal should get in Guyana, should get the same media space in Starbrook News and everywhere else to defend themselves. This a criminal. It has nothing to do, absolutely nothing to do with him being a critic of the government. Now they embrace him like that because they want to make the inconvenient go away, that this is a criminal who's trying to extort people. Now, as to service, they'll have all kinds of debate. I saw the new person who weighed in is some ex-magistrate, Kush, who didn't want to work a single day for this government when we assumed office. Well, you'd have those. And I've seen everyone weighed in from the opposition. They are complicit in a criminal act. APNU has sunk to a new low now. Formally, they have embraced a criminal who's extorting businessmen. This is not about free speech, because this country, free speech is alive and well. You just look at it every day. It's alive and well. In fact, people go beyond what would be considered normal in many other parts of the world. And you don't see them every day being hounded by the government. But this is a criminal. APNU, AFC, and its leaders, Roysdale Forde.
Welcome to another edition of Voice of the Diaspora. Here in studio with me today is opposition member parliament and prominent lawyer and senior counsel Roysdale Forde. Roysdale Forde is no stranger to the Guyanese community, to the Guyanese diaspora, and Roysdale is a politician that is recognized and respected by Guyanese and others in the legal fraternity across the Caribbean. Roysdale Forde joins me now to talk about the Rickford Burke's persecution by the PPP and whether there is any legal um, weight to persecute Burke, or whether this is the PPP's machination to persecute activists and especially African Guyanese. Of course, Guyanese across the world would have read Roysdale Forde's response to Barra Jagdeo that was carried in the press across Guyana. It was carried widely, and Roysdale was very vehement that the PPP is up to wickedness and they're up to persecution, and there is no legal weight in any action that they are attempting to take against an activist based in the US, Mr. Rickford Burke. I want to welcome Roysdale Forde. Of course, we will also be talking um, about the opposition and its preparedness for the 2025 elections. But we're dealing today, firstly, with the Burke situation. Mr. Forde, welcome to Voice of the Diaspora.
Thank you, Norman, for inviting me to your show, and good day to your listening audience throughout the world.
And thank you for taking the time out. I know we had a mix up with the timing, and I apologize for that. I really respect that you were on time, but I mixed the time up. You were here since 7 o'clock, and you called in on time, and that is a good indication of a good leader. That's very promising that you made a promise and you called in even when the program was not ready. And so kudos to you. I really want to begin by saying that you are no ordinary legal mind in Guyana. You are no ordinary legal mind, but you are also a politician. And though many argue that you may be a bit reserved, recently we have seen Roysdale Forde coming forward, coming to the front, and there's no question to your intellectual capacity and the depth of your knowledge in legal affairs and in politics. And so many were very happy to see you come out and speak vehemently against Vice President Jagdeo's views about Rickford Burke and the government of Guyana, the dictatorship actions, your purported legal actions to see Rickford Burke return to Guyana to be tried. Roysdale, I want to firstly ask you, when you examine this entire scenario in relation to the PPP's action towards Rickford Burke, from a legal perspective, I really want you to elaborate for our viewers what this is all about. Give them a background of all of it and your view as a legal mind, a leading legal mind in Guyana, about what is happening.
Well, Norman, before I really speak on it from a strict legal position, I believe that law is a product of the society. I would like to deal with it from what is happening in Guyana at this point in time. It's very interesting in the clip that you played, none other than Barrett Jagdeo himself proceeded to describe my party, my coalition, that I am a proud member, as associating with criminals. And I believe that one of the first things we have to address in addressing the issue here at hand and dealing with it is the hypocritical nature of Barrett Jagdeo and the PPP itself. Now, In that clip there, speaking obviously to the PPP faithful, he's saying that the APNU AFC coalition and its leaders have come out in support of a criminal. By the definition of any sort of word in relation to criminal, we have a situation where the current and sitting president of Guyana, a member of the PPP, was not merely being sought to be served with any summons, but was in fact served and charged with 19 offenses. The Attorney General was subject to criminal proceedings, I believe he was. The Minister of Finance, current Minister of Finance, was subject to criminal proceedings. I saw a few days ago Ramsamy trying to deal with the issue and come to the defense of VC Jagdeo was charged and subject to criminal proceedings. So we have a party who has demonstrated that they're prepared to put somebody charged and to run while being charged to be the president of Guyana, as against trying to make an allegation against some person who is merely attempted to be served. Now, it was important that I deal with that issue there. Now, what is happening is that this PP government is becoming more and more emboldened in their efforts to suppress dissent, suppress free speech, suppress any other view which they do not want to tolerate. Now, interestingly, VC Jagdeo sought to draw a distinction between what is said by Gordon Mosley or Travis Chase, and he wants to say that that is acceptable. That is inherently the problem with what we have going on here. VC Jagdeo, the classic dictator, wants to determine what sort of free speech is permissible and allowable. That is the fundamental problem we have. So in his mind, in the PPP's mind, they have decided that the sort of free speech that emanates from Burke and yourself and other social media influencers, as VC Jagdeo described them, is unacceptable. It's too harsh, too biting, too direct, and it has too much of a capacity to influence the citizens of this country. And that is why I telegraphed very early VC Jagdeo's growing dissent and the position that he would have adopted over a period of time in relation to social media influencers. If you would recall, Norman, he started saying months ago to the PPP supporters that they must get on Facebook, get on social media, that they're behind the ball on it. So I don't think that he would have gathered or been able to obtain anything of substance from his supporters. So he's decided that he must turn his attention directly, first to Rickford Burke, and secondly to the social media influence. So ultimately what is happening here is about free speech. It's about the capacity to be able to say exactly what you want to say. And in the circumstances, VC Jagdeo have a problem with that. He must determine what is acceptable free speech. The Constitution doesn't place him in that position to determine what is acceptable or what is not acceptable. Now, turning directly to the fact that they attempted to serve these summons on Rickford Burke, Norman, there's no basis in law for the service of a defendant's summons in the manner in which they attempted to do it on Rickford Burke. As a matter of fact, I'll go so further to say that there's no legal provision authorizing the service of a defendant's summons outside the geographical or territorial space of Guyana. That is why when I responded to Sanjeev Datadin, member of the PPP, I simply told him, if you are so confident that you are right, you produce the provision under which this is allowable. And there's a reason why I've said that. I wouldn't go further to explain obvious reasons why I put it that way. But there's absolutely no provision which would permit this. Now, what they're trying to do, Norman, whilst criminalizing Rickford Burke, is trying to find ways of reaching people outside of Guyana, to instill fear in them, to instill that the PPP arms are be able to reach and get you in relation to what you want to say. So they're recognizing that maybe the Guyanese diaspora is becoming too outspoken. They're too much situated in important places. They're always talking about Rickford Burke's connection to members of Congress. They don't like that. So ultimately, Norman, what they're attempting to do here is indeed to suppress free speech. And first, they want to criminalize Rickford Burke. Imagine he's only charged, supposedly charged, but they call condemning him. The same constitution that he purports to function under, but at least give him the benefit of the doubt, not to be accused and found guilty. But the fact that they just simply want to institute the criminal proceedings is very alarming. You know, we heard Bar Jagdeo speaking there about the fact that about extortion,
Yes.
and he spoke about Miss Cush.
And
Now,
yourself.
Miss Cush and myself, but Miss Cush is the lawyer involved in the matter in the magistrate's court. I don't know if Bar Jagdeo was there in court when he would have heard a witness speak. As far as I understand this thing, Norman,
Mhm.
um, one person went to the police station to make a report against a businessman that they were owed a considerable sum of money. They made a report. The report was lodged with the for hundreds of thousands of US dollars, I believe it was. That report was lodged. Nothing happened. Then the businessman went and make an allegation against the person who went first, saying that something happened with them. But it's interesting to note, Norman, that when the matter started in the magistrate's court, the policeman testified that indeed he had received a um, report from one businessman that he had locked it up in his drawers for 3 months, for 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, and that even when the trial was taking place, he had done nothing about that report. The point I'm taking us here to now, Norman, is the involvement of the Guyana police force in a manner that is very unfair. You see the hands of the politicians involved and the ability to suppress complaints, and the very person that you make a complaint against will come back to you and have you now summoned to appear in court. Norman, imagine you went to the police station, you're saying that an individual owes you 100 and something thousand US dollars, but you're being charged for extortion of 140,000 Guyana dollars. It doesn't make common sense, right? A is saying that B owes them 100 and something thousand dollars, but B is being charged for extorting 140,000 Guyana dollars, 700,000, 700 US or something like that. So the story that Barra Jagdeo, you would observe, he just spoke about the issue of extortion. He doesn't go into details because it's not relevant. He just simply want to be able to criminalize persons, right? Put them out there, and then start a process of dismantling them in society. The next stage, as he outlined in his press conferences, is the persons who would he consider social media influencers, who will be able to go out there and affect and change public opinion. That is what he's concerned about. He's concerned about Burke's influence. He's concerned about Burke's concerns. Now, he's talking about free speech and how he must speak properly and he must not engage in racism. He has the Guyanese critics. He engages in conversations with him. He's on his television program or Facebook program, cussing, denouncing people, speaking about who's black, the negativity of being black, all the criticisms about being black. But you don't find one single condemnation from Barra Jagdeo or the PPP or from the Guyana Police Force or from the Ethnic Relations Commission. So nobody's going to take this seriously. Nobody's seriously believing that the PPP have some position that is fundamentally fair, motivated by some laudable concern about the rule of law and criminality in the country. They would charge themselves if they were concerned about criminality in Guyana.
Roysdale Forde here on Voice of the Diaspora, Senior Counsel, Attorney at Law, and Opposition Politician Member of Parliament. In fact, Roysdale is touted to be one of the front runners at the next PNCR elections to take the leadership and perhaps to stand on the platform as the presidential candidate of Guyana. Roysdale Forde here. Roysdale, I really want you to tell the viewers too. Look, Jagdeo said he called your name and he called Attorney Don Cush's name. And he said that the opposition is complicit. He made the opposition complicit in the criminality that Burke is involved in. As a legal mind, take us through, very specifically, take us through this summons and the way it was done and why it was wrong and legally void, null and void. Give our viewers a layman's perspective, from a legal perspective, of why this is persecution and that there is no legal,
Well, in a very simple way, Norman, the criminal justice system of a country, of a state, for Guyana, it is based also on the constitution of the country. The constitution of Guyana defines the territorial limits of Guyana,
Yes, sir.
and it is a principle of international law that the criminal jurisdiction of a country is limited to its territorial space. Now, it requires treaties and conventions,
Yes, sir.
particularly to allow criminal processes to be initiated outside of the state of Guyana. There's no such process in place. There's no such provision allowing the service of a summons outside of Guyana. We would have seen a number of very misguided statements emanating from supporters of the PPP saying that, look, the court issued an order for service abroad. Now, the fundamental issue here is that those instances would have been civil matters. And even in relation to civil matters, the law requires that the court, to order service, the court is empowered by virtue of local law to issue services abroad of summons, of writs, and other legal proceedings. There is no such provision in place in relation to a criminal matter on a criminal process, which would permit a court, much less a magistrate's court, which is a creature of statute. A magistrate could only exercise powers that have been expressly conferred upon the court. So there's no basis to say that the magistrate can order the service of a summons outside the territorial space of Guyana. There are countries where something like that could happen, but it's done pursuant to a treaty, pursuant to a specific piece of legislation authorizing that. As far as I'm aware, and I've challenged the members of the PPP to do so, there's no such provision in relation to any such thing in Guyana. Now, you would have heard Mr. Nandalal saying something.
Well, I want to play that clip before you mention that, because you're going to touch and respond to Mr. Nandalal. So let us go to the clip where the Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs installed Mr. Anil Nandalal, giving his view on the situation as it relates to the Burke's case.
The offenses for which he's wanted. We have also had a lot of engagements with the US government and US law enforcement agencies, generally in relation to the criminal justice system and bringing people to justice in both countries. So I suspect that Rickford Burke recognizes that at some point in time in the very near future, he will have to come to Guyana to answer to these charges. And as a result, I believe that he's reacting in the way that he is, hoping to excite, I suppose, public sympathies, hoping to fabricate a story that there is some vendetta against him in Guyana. There is no such thing. Guyana is a society governed by the rule of law, and they who decide to flout the rule of law will have to face the legal consequences of their actions.
Roysdale, this is the Minister of Legal Affairs and the Attorney General, and he said at some point Rickford Burke will have to be returned to Guyana and so on. When you listen to that view coming from the Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, what would you like to say to the Attorney General, to the PPP, and to the people of Guyana?
Well, what I would say, Norman, is that once again, the Attorney General, Mr. Nandalal, and all of their cronies have failed to identify the basis upon which Rickford Burke will be returned to Guyana. The Attorney General has failed to identify any law which permits the service of a summons abroad. He has failed to identify that as the government or the state of Guyana would have instituted proceedings for the extradition of Rickford Burke. He has identified nothing of substance in what he said just now that would indicate the basis for seeking to have Rickford Burke return to Guyana and to attend court here. So we are at exactly the same point where they're producing nothing to justify uh, their illegal acts.
Go ahead, go ahead. We got a
So
bit
so
of time.
so, so Yeah. So we're at a situation, Norman, where there's no basis for telling the nation, to telling the people, or actually misrepresenting without providing the information as to why Rickford Burke will be returned here. It certainly cannot be on the basis of Mrs. Sarabo going on a plane, landing in America, and purporting to serve a summons in
But
the United States of America.
he said that they are engaging the U.S. authorities, the government. Are you aware of that as an opposition politician and a legal mind in Guyana? Are you aware that that the PPP is engaging the U.S. authorities in relation to the extradition of Rickford Burke? Is this an outright lie? Is this something that the PPP, Anil Nandalal and Vice President Jagdeo, they are using to create a public opinion to bastardize and to demonize Rickford Burke?
I am not aware that they are doing anything like that. I know that from time to time we would see the Attorney General meeting with representatives of the United States. But as far as I'm aware, there's been no process, no valid process, which would have been initiated by the state or the government of Guyana in relation to Rickford Burke. I'm aware that they would have made a number of comments, a number of statements, a number of illegal attempts to get officials in the United States to act illegally, not only in relation to Rickford Burke, but in relation to a wide cross section of persons. I'm aware that millions of dollars of our oil money are being spent seeking to grow the camp nests of consultants and advisors who will be resident in the United States to project the good image of this government, far from the reality. But I don't know that up to now they have initiated any valid legal process which could match what they're saying will happen up to now.
It seems, I would think, to be a bluff. And in the courts of public opinion, they're trying to impress upon the Guyanese people that Burke is a criminal, and they keep pronouncing on African Guyanese, especially. As a politician, do you conclude that this targeting is specifically towards African Guyanese, and that it is a racist move by the PPP?
Certainly. When you listen to Barra Jagdeo's weekly press conferences, it is a voyage into a dark place, into his mind, which is a very dark mind, a very racist mind. You have never seen on any occasion for all the years that Barajagyo have engaged in this sort of public assault on the credibility of people, whether they're politicians or not, you've never heard him refer, and I could be wrong, but I've never heard him refer to an Indian person as a criminal. Have you ever heard that?
I
Have
haven't.
you ever heard that?
I haven't actually.
Good. So, but on a weekly basis, you identify Guyanese of African descent, African Guyanese, and you label them first as being a criminal. And you say it repeatedly, hoping that it will match what your party want to get out there.
The
That Guyanese
narrative.
are criminal. It supports the narrative. It reinforces what they want people to see African Guyanese are in the society. And subconsciously, I believe it is part of their process of, if not subconsciously, consciously part of their process in relation to the allocation of resources across the length and breadth of the country.
Roysdale Forde and Voice of the Diaspora. Look, you are at this juncture and at this moment. We are in an era in Guyana where Guyana has been transformed into an oil-rich country. And so we are no longer seen, whether we are politicians, activists, ordinary citizens, we're no longer seen as people from an impoverished third world country. We have been catapulted into the international limelight. And so wherever Guyanese go, they are recognized as Guyanese from a wealthy, a very, no longer potentially wealthy, but a very, very wealthy country. And so you are a senior politician. You are a senior counsel in the legal fraternity. Um, Most who say anything about you would say that Roysdale Forde has a depth, he has a brilliance, extraordinary. Maybe he's not very overt and, animated or whatever, but he has a depth to become a president, a leader, and so on. And so I want to put you on the spot here. We are now in a situation where in 2025 we should be going to national elections. Many are saying that you are perched to be in any leadership contest, to be a favorite or the favorite to lead your party and to become the the candidate, the presidential candidate at the next national elections. People are in the diaspora, they're saying that there are organizations and groups in the diaspora that are saying that you appear very reserved. And tonight I want you to talk and to manifest your position because young people are watching this program, DJs are watching this program. I don't know if they know of a Roysdale Forde as they know of others in politics in Guyana. And so tonight you offer that opportunity. When you look at your party, is it ready for Congress this year, and will it be ready if you had anything to do with it to go into national elections, given what the PPP is doing to go into national elections and triumph?
Um, Norman, in relation to the party's Congress, which is scheduled for this year, as you know, the leader, Mr. Norton, identified that it will be held no later than August.
Yes,
I
sir.
believe that the party will put all mechanisms in place, and I expect a very vibrant process. There will be candidates, myself and other persons who will probably be nominated, um, and I expect it to be um, contested keenly in a spirit of respect and cordiality. Um, uh,
If you can move back a
Pardon
bit
me?
to your, if you can move back a bit to your left, you're coming off the screen. So just good, yeah, and then you're perfect there. Just move back a
Sorry
bit,
about
yeah. Good. So, and I know that in the party context, you have offered a response there that shows the party in the context of how it will move forward as a party. I'm asking you a direct question. Um, many believe that the party at this juncture is not mobilized, it's not organized, it's in disarray. There is no unity. There isn't really a party per se that is going through the process of what a party has to go through in a united fashion. Many are saying that Roysdale Forde, a legal mind, a senior counsel, and an astute politician, is identified as a favorite to transform the party and to take its leadership into the next elections successfully. How do you respond to the view that the party is not mobilized, it is not organized, that there may be divisions, that it is not ready? How do you respond to that for the sake of our viewers?
Norman, I don't believe that I could come today before you and tell you that there are challenges in the political party that I'm a member of. There's any in the PPP, for example, there are political challenges there. The challenges of different sorts. What you asking me is whether, despite those challenges, and this is my understanding of the question,
Yes.
whether despite the challenges that exist currently in the PNC and the wider coalition, whether it could become the party ready for a general election. And I believe that despite the challenges that we face, of whatever sort they are, and I don't think we necessarily need to go into the details of what
Details.
those challenges,
No, we don't.
but whatever those challenges are, I believe that ultimately the party will surround and emerge and support the best possible person through a process, an internal process, which will be fair and objective. And that person, I believe, will be able to lead the party forward towards a successful showing at the next general and regional elections. The reason why I'm saying this, the reason why I'm saying this, Norman, and I just want to deal with this part. The
No,
reason why
no,
I'm
make a
saying this,
point.
because ultimately, at the end of the day, this is not about Roysdale Forde. I'm prepared to play a role. I'm prepared to play whatever role I'm needed to play, be played by the party and by the membership of the party. But this is ultimately about the Guyanese people and which party will be able to demonstrate that at the end of the day, it has the best plan, the best way of taking the people from where they are to a fair society. We currently have a situation, and you're aware, despite you saying that we've been catapulted into the international stage of wealth and being well known and all of that and highly regarded, the people living in Guyana are punishing. You have a situation where 40% of our people are still living in abject poverty. 48% of our children cannot read and write. We have a situation where hundreds of nurses are leaving the country. Public servants are not happy. They're being paid meager wages continuously. There's a total breakdown in the judiciary, in the ability to clear up a backlog, be able to have a proper functioning court system. We have a situation where the police force is not functioning fair and effective. The university is not being given the sort of funding that it received. Our health sector is in a state of disaster. So when you look to see what is happening in this country, Norman, and I want to get for a moment beyond the personality issue that exists in the party, what is happening in the country now, there is sufficient for the party to recognize that this is a very serious state of affairs that we exist in, that the supporters exist in, that the Guyanese people, irrespective of race or class or gender, exist in. And the only way that we could make a difference is to present a united party, a party that is genuinely united, having gone through a process of identifying fairly who is expected to lead the party, and the party rallying around that person in terms of developing a game plan and a strategy going forward. Because this is an election, despite all the wealth that exists in the country and all the wealth that exists in the control of the PPP, this is an election that can be won by the opposition.
Let me. That's brilliant. Let me ask you this, and I want to be very candid with you here. Come back to your left. I want to be very candid with you. I want the viewers to see you. Now I can see you clearly. Um, I want to be very candid with you. Sorry, Roysdale. Sorry. Sorry, I'm on a live at the moment. I'll give me a call back. Yeah. Roysdale, are you saying that the party at present is not ready, as it is at this moment? Is it ready? The veteran trade unionist Lincoln Lewis and others have said that in 2024, the hegemonic behavior of the PPP, which they have gotten away with over the past 3 years, there must be a new approach to that hegemonic behavior. And that new approach must include the opposition, its involvement in that approach. I'm asking you now, you are not the leader of your party currently. You need to tell the public, if you may, whether you believe at this juncture that your party is on a trajectory, currently on a trajectory, to be able to be successful in confronting the PPP in 2025, or if there is need for a leadership elections in which the party can choose a leadership that can now garner the support of all to take the party in a united fashion to confront a dictatorship. Questions are, is the party ready? Is the party prepared to choose an approach that they have not chosen over the past 3 years to confront a dictatorship that has been getting away with everything? And tonight I want you to talk, because this is your opportunity to say to the Guyanese world what your position is. It's not about trumping anybody. It's about your position as a future leader in the party, looking to save the party, unite it, and take it into a victory so that Guyanese in general can have a good life. Your position.
Well, Norman, again, I've got to answer you because I want to make sure that we are on the same page in terms of the questions that you're asking. Now, in relation to whether the party is on a trajectory, I would say yes. You said your question was whether the party is on a trajectory to have a leadership challenge, a leadership elections, a leadership process, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And I indicated that the leader indicated that those elections will be held no
In
later
August.
than. So I've answered that one.
Yeah.
In relation to the first question that you asked, in relation to whether the party is in a state of preparedness, I believe
Currently.
the party currently, um, things are dynamic, Norman. The party is in a process of identifying its plan. I know that work is being done in relation to strategies. I know that work is being done in relation to articulating a manifesto and other issues. Um, so I don't believe that it is necessarily a situation where the party is um, completely not focused on the challenges around it. I believe that impression might be created because we don't necessarily come out strong enough necessarily in many instances on a number of issues and in relation to a lot of our public statements in how they are articulated. But I cannot agree with the question that there's nothing happening right now in the
But
party, and
there's
the
nothing
party is
happening in terms of representation. I understand internal party move to ensure that it's strengthened and all of that you're saying. I am talking about the PPP's hegemonic behavior, its hegemonic attitude, the way it's trampling on Guyanese and getting away with it. Many believe that the opposition is not responding. I said Lincoln Lewis, as a veteran trade unionist, and a number of other voices in Guyana said that we have reached the zenith of talking, and therefore there has to be an adopted position in which the PPP must be confronted to stop this hegemonic behavior. I'm asking
but
you this question
but
as
but
the
but,
opposition.
but, well, Norman, I believe that I know you missed it today. I was not able to read it completely, but the leader of the
Yeah, come
party
back to your
indicated
left. Come back to your left.
the,
Yeah, go ahead.
the leader of the party indicated today that he has indicated that within a month or two, we will see a greater degree of militancy, I put it, in
Okay.
relation to confronting the PPP. So that is what I was about to mention to you. So,
Go ahead.
so
Yeah.
so that is what I was saying, that it is a dynamic process. Ultimately, if persons came to the conclusion that that was something that was not in place before, not happening, we certainly see as of today, the leader himself announced that that was going to be a trajectory that the party will be on
Do
over the
you
next month.
do you believe that? And will you be a
Well, well,
part
well,
of that process?
well, the leader said it, Norman. There's no basis for me within an hour or two to say that I disbelieve him or I don't believe that he's telling the truth. I certainly expect to be part of the process as a member of the
Yes.
party, as a member of the opposition, member of parliament. I certainly expect that I would play a role in that process and in fine tuning it and hammering it out.
My final question to you, Attorney at Law Roysdale Forde, Senior Counsel. You are a senior counsel, one of the most brilliant legal minds in Guyana, alongside Nigel Hughes. I don't know about Sanjeev Dattadin and Anil Nandalal. You may have to tell me otherwise. But you are one of the most brilliant legal minds in Guyana. I want to ask you this final question before you give your closing remarks. What if you were leader over the past 2 years of the PNCR? What would you have done differently?
Well, Norman, there are a number of things I would have done differently. One, I believe that apart from seeking to confront the PPP in what they would have been doing in the country, I would have certainly done that. I would have sought to engage in a process of establishing a wider and deeper coalition against the PPP in terms of seeking to establish the party into new communities, multiracial communities. I would have been able to address the issue of labor and the role of the Trade Unions Congress in terms of articulating um, fair and better treatment for workers. I would have focused on the question of the judiciary more. Um, and I would have been able to point out my view is that we should have articulated, or I would have articulated, a position that is really more of a strong, united position across the party, across the coalition, and about the different elements that make up the Guyanese society.
Roysdale Forde here on Voice of the one of Guyana's most brilliant legal mind, right alongside Nigel Hughes and a few others. Roysdale's depth is unquestionable. Whether he is overt is another question, we hope. And we have seen recently that that manifestation, that overt manifestation of speaking out and standing up is now, very present. How will it continue? Will it intensify? Roysdale Forde is no ordinary Guyanese. Roysdale Forde is one of our most brilliant legal minds. Roysdale Forde, your closing remarks to our viewers.
Thank you very much, Norman, for having invited me on your show. I believe that the state at which we are in the country is one that requires your involvement and support. and many of the other persons abroad in the diaspora. I believe the diaspora play a very important role in checking many of the insanities uh, that the government wants to engage in. The fact that they have come out so hard against social media influencers, to use the term stated by Jagdeo and Burke, I believe it is part of their plan to suppress dissent and your ability to influence what is happening in Guyana. I believe, coupled with what is in fact happening in Guyana in terms of the increased cost of living and the impact it's having on the quality of life of the Guyanese people, irrespective of race. You will go into the Indian communities, the African communities, the concerns, as I've always said, are the same. The impact it's having on their life, the ability to have a proper life. The children are suffering across the length and breadth of the country. Hunger is on the increase. The Amerindian people are punishing. The African Guyanese people are punishing in the villages, and the same is happening across the length and breadth of the country in relation to Indian communities. Norman, the reason why this is important, Norman, is because ultimately what we are to face is an election. And what the PPP must be seen as a small group of people, of oligarchs, who are taking control of the wealth of the country, whilst the vast majority of us, irrespective of our differences and race, continue to suffer and become no part of this life. I believe that the APNU AFC party, coalition, and the PNC as a party will be able to provide the Guyanese people, irrespective of race, with the opportunity to step out of their present condition. And I believe that that is the important thing that should be pressed by my party at each and every step of the way. We need to establish and we need to inspire the hope, the faith, and confidence of the Guyanese people, and to capture it and to receive it with the sort of sincerity and commitment that you're actually going to do things that would make their lives better.
Roysdale Forde, thank you for being here on Voice of the Diaspora. I hope that there is militancy to push back hegemony and dictatorship and the violence perpetrated on the Guyanese people, especially African Guyanese, by the People's Progressive Party, the infiltration and control of the Guyana police force, the army, the lawlessness in the Guyanese community. The opposition has not been able to counter it. And I am happy that you said this evening that the leader of the opposition said we should expect a certain amount of militancy as early as possible before August. I want to thank you very much for being here on Voice of the Diaspora. So many people have tuned in. So many people have tuned in. And I am very appreciative of our discourse. And I thank you so much. And I wish you the best of luck in your sojourn within politics and within the legal fraternity. You have recently stood up against the PPP, not as the leader of the opposition, but as a lawyer and as a politician and a member of parliament. And your words, your views, your legal positions and arguments would have reached across the Guyanese diaspora. Continue doing the good work, Roysdale Forde. Thank you so much for being here on
Thank you
Voice of the
very much.
Diaspora.
Thank you. Good night.